Hello, and welcome to our presentation today entitled Senior Investors and Vulnerable Clients, Preventing and Reporting Financial Exploitation. Thanks for joining us. Before we begin, just some brief introductions. My name is Angela Turiano. I'm a principal at the law firm of Bressler, Amory, and Ross in the New York office. I focus my practice on the representation of broker-dealers and individual financial representatives in customer complaint, sales practice litigation, regulatory matters, and employment. With me today is we have an assortment from across the board of our offices. Is Christy Boardman from Alabama and Taylor Bandy from Miami, Florida, who also focus their practice in a similar area as I do. And of utmost importance today, we are all members of the Senior and Vulnerable Investors Group at Bressler. So in being members of this group, we all have attained a certain expertise in this area, which is why we are presenting on this topic today. So what are we going to be talking about today? A brief overview of today's discussion. First, we're going to discuss what is senior vulnerable investor financial exploitation. Next, we're going to talk about specific laws, rules, and regulations impacting broker-dealers. And finally, we're going to go over some best practices and practical tips to protect yourself from exposure from litigation and to prevent this type of fraud against vulnerable investors. And just as a little bit by way of background, there really was a focus on protection of senior investors starting in like 2013. FINRA and the SEC initiated an assessment of firms, policies, and procedures regarding senior investor clients. And they looked around to see what different firms were doing to protect these investors. Since 2013, it's been an ongoing effort with increased focus on seniors by FINRA, state regulators, and even the federal government. And there's a reason for that, which we'll get into. So first, let's start with what is senior vulnerable investor exploitation? As I stated, we're going to be discussing in a little bit specific rules and regulations, but the FINRA rule that defines financial exploitation is a good one, and it pretty much covers what it is. And it is, for purposes of this rule, the term financial exploitation means the wrongful or unauthorized taking, withholding, appropriation, or use of a specified adult's funds or securities. So that would be like your classic fraud, someone taking somebody's money. And I'll discuss the definition of specified adult in just 1 minute. And B of 2165, which is the rule defining exploitation, is any act or omission by a person, including through the use of power of attorney, guardianship, or any other authority regarding a specified adult to obtain control through deception, intimidation, or undue influence over the specified adult's money, assets, or property, or convert the specified adult's money, assets, or property. So that would be like your typical like abuse of power, somebody, a caretaker, or somebody close to the victim that through using their influence, they commit a fraud. So that is how exploitation is defined by FINRA rules, and that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today, that type of exploitation. Now, we talked about a specified adult in that definition. So who is protected? Who are specified adults? Well, that depends on if you're talking about FINRA, federal law, or state law. So specified adults under FINRA rule is somebody 65 or older, or any adult 18 or older who the firm reasonably believes has a mental or physical impairment that prevents them from protecting their own interests. So like a disabled individual that can't really protect themselves. The Senior Safe Act, which is the federal law on this subject, is also 65 or older. But then when we get into state law, there's a little bit of variation as you go state by state, but it's interesting that they consider, many states consider a specified adult to be anybody 60 or older, which is actually in the grand scheme of things pretty young. I think there's many attorneys at this firm who would dispute the fact that they are among the specified adults who need protection, but nevertheless, many states do consider 60 the cutoff age. And they also have, state laws also include disabled individuals 18 or older who have a diminished physical or mental capacity. And again, it depends on the state, what the specific definition is. Okay, I mentioned at the beginning that there's a reason why there's been a focus, and one of the reasons why the focus has been continually getting more and increased since 2013 is because of the senior population and the way it's been swelling and growing over the past years.